In light of James Gunn's Superman movie coming out in July 11th, starring David Corenswet, I'll be going through all of the Superman movies starting from the 1978 one all the way till Batman vs Superman, and I'll just be cataloging them, trying to just leading up to the new Superman movie. Because despite unpopular opinion, in my opinion, a lot of people are just being loud online and saying all these negative things about the new Superman, and I get it. You were used to Christopher Reeves, or you were used to Henry Cavill, or whatever the case is, but we have a new person, and his name is David Corenswet, and he deserves a chance just like everybody else deserved a chance. And after rewatching all of these movies, my opinion on Superman in general has definitely not necessarily changed, but it has progressed and it has altered a little bit, especially about certain Superman movies that I might have liked before, but after rewatching them, I have a little bit of a different opinion, or movies that I've watched before, didn't really like, and then after rewatching them, I realized it was actually not as bad as a movie as people made it out to be, or even I made it out to be, and I can admit that. So let's get into this. Directed by Richard Donner, Superman from 1978 is a beautiful movie, especially showcasing the Man of Steel and bringing this comic book hero to life. Especially back then, it was so huge, and it is one of the best Superman movies that is out there. And it is so amazing to see how Christopher Reeves brought not only Superman, Kal-El, to live action, but also Clark Kent. He embodied Clark Kent and Kal-El very, very well, in my opinion. So, as everyone pretty much knows, we all know the story of Superman. Basically, we have Superman's parents, who their planet Krypton is dying, and Jor-El, who is played by Marlon Brando, decides that his son is a beacon of hope, and he wants his son to be that beacon of hope for other planets, and so that what's happening on Krypton doesn't happen on another planet. He and his wife decide to send off Clark, or Kal-El, to a distant world, just send him off in a spaceship, and in hopes that he will survive and grow and be strong and take care of the people of planet Earth. Glenn Ford and Phyllis Thaxter, they both respectively play Pa Kent and Ma Kent. So as we all know in the story as well, he lands in Smallville, and these two people find him, who are John and Martha Kent, and they raise him as their own son, and they obviously know that he is not necessarily normal. He arrived in a spaceship and he lifted a truck right in front of them, you know what I'm saying? So it is just such a great way to introduce this story to people, especially back in the 1970s, early 80s. It was just such a great thing. I wish that I was alive around that time and saw this come out in theaters for the first time, because I remember going to see Brandon Routh's Superman from 2006 in theaters, and I was amazed, back then. And we'll get to those movies later on. So basically, throughout this movie, we have Christopher Reeves playing Clark Kent and Kal-El, and he is trying to woo Lois Lane, played by Margot Kidder, by working at the Daily Planet and being Mr. I don't know, Lois. So great, because Christopher Reeves did an amazing job with that. We have Lex Luthor, played by Gene Hackman, trying to just do his diabolical plan, launch these missiles, and cause all this mass mayhem, and he ends up succeeding in causing mass mayhem, which leads to a big event later on in the movie. I will say, for being the first Perry White, Jackie Cooper did a great job, because there are various Perry Whites throughout the Superman franchise, and they change, and it's very interesting. And I would say that all of the people who have played Perry White did a good job for what for the direction that they were given, and for the story and how it pertained to the Superman lore. They did a great job. At the beginning of the movie, we see General Zod and his lackeys, played by Terrence Stamp, and they're getting locked in the Phantom Zone, which we'll get into that more in the second movie when we get to that review. But in the beginning, we see that General Zod and his lackeys, the three of them, are locked in the Phantom Zone, tossed into space, into this little triangle. I remember when I was a kid, that used to weird me out a little bit, that they were just in a triangle going through space, it was just like, whoa, what is happening?
You will lie down before me, Jor-El! Both you and them one day, Jor-El!
Obviously, we get older and we're like, wow, that's bad CGI. But it was for its time. It was of the time, so it was just great to watch. And it was nice to see these villains and heroes and see this story unfold. It was very interesting to see Gene Hackman play Lex Luthor, seeing Superman come around, he was just like, oh, you know, who's this guy? Like, you know, screw him. Like, let's screw him and screw the world. And I like how Gene Hackman played Lex Luthor. We have several other Lex Luthors in the franchise, such as Kevin Spacey, Jesse Eisenberg, and now with the new one, we have Nicholas Hoult. And I will say that for the past ones that we've had, Gene Hackman, Kevin Spacey, and Jesse Eisenberg, as a Lex Luthor, they all did amazing in their own way. And we'll get to the other ones when we get to those movies. From this point, they all did an amazing job in their own respective way as Lex Luthor. We go through the motions, we see how Clark is battling things in his everyday life as Clark Kent and as Superman, and then we come to the nitty-gritty of the movie, and Lois Lane is caught in these tectonic plates getting messed up. There's an earthquake, and then her car falls into a ravine. And so Superman, unfortunately, he finds her late, and this is the famous thing of Superman reversing time, flying around the world so he can reverse time to save Lois Lane. It was just, I remember seeing that as a kid, and I was like, holy crap, like this man really can do anything. So the thing is, like, for its time, it was such an amazing movie, and they did so much with it with the little that they had. So it's a respect factor for me from the creators, the directors, the makeup department, the costume department, the special effects department. It's just, they did what they could with what they had, and it was amazing. As far as first movies go, origins go, this movie is right up there at the top. It is one of my favorite Superman films. Not my favorite, but one of my favorite Superman films of all time. And Christopher Reeves, I grew up with him. I didn't see him in theaters. The first Superman I saw in theaters was Brandon Routh and then Henry Cavill, but I grew up with Christopher Reeves and with Dean Cain. Then you have Tyler Hoechlin, who plays Superman in the CW universe, and he does a phenomenal job as well. Tom Welling played a great Clark Kent for like 9 or 10 seasons, and then he finally became Superman. It's kind of a joke, but he was Superman the whole time. But Tom Welling was such an icon for Superman as well, and Clark Kent. So you have so many people that have done this in such a different way, but still did it an amazing way. So that's my whole point with these videos leading up to David Corenswet's Superman, James Gunn's debut with his movie as portraying the new DCU, starting with this Superman. Things are different, you know, things can be done in a different way, but they can still be good and they can still be enjoyed. You just have to be willing to enjoy it, or just take it for what it is. You can't have this like false sense of entitlement and expectations, because nothing's ever truly gonna be perfect the way you want, and sometimes things are, but you just have to be willing to work with it. And I think that if people just work with the fact that we have David Corenswet and not Henry Cavill or Tom Welling or Christopher Reeve, you know, like, just give the guy a chance and let him show us what he can do. I definitely saw how Henry Cavill took notes from Christopher Reeves and from the other people that played Superman. Same thing with Brandon Routh. He definitely took a lot of notes from Christopher Reeves, and I think he personally embodied Clark Kent and Superman a lot better than most people. So thank you for joining me for this video on Superman from 1978. The next video will be Superman 2, and we will go into that and talk about that and go through all the other movies. So thank you for sticking around for this, and I hope that you join me for the next video in this series. You know the drill. Hit that like button and the subscribe button. It'll be much appreciated. Thank you so much, guys. Until the next one.